You're listening to Stories Behind the Songs with Chris Blair. For more information, check out chrisblair.com. Hey everybody, here's another episode of Stories Behind the Songs. I'm your host, Chris Blair, and in this episode, I sat down with my buddy Cliff Cody. I've known Cliff for close to 20 years, long before I even started the listening room. We used to play shows together and run around town together. He's just a great guy. Cliff grew up in Odessa, Texas. That's right, Odessa, Texas, home of Friday Night Lights. And he was a football star, because that's just what you have to do if you grow up in Odessa, Texas. But he also loved music. After getting hurt in football, he jumped full-time into music. And in this episode, he talks more about how that transition happened and what inspired him to get going. He's going to talk about how he got into songwriting and how he moved to Nashville at the age of 20. And then after being in Nashville, how he had some great success as a songwriter. And he dives into the stories behind some of those songs, but he also talks about how he ended up leaving Nashville, going to the Key West Songwriting Festival, falling in love, and then moving to Key West, and how he is still there now and continues to write, but is also making a great living in Key West as a performer and an artist himself. Cliff is a great friend and a great guy, and it was really fun to sit down with him around his stomping grounds in Florida. So I hope you like this episode as well as we did, and continue to follow, share, like, all the things anywhere that you are listening. And also let us know any songwriter or artist that you want to hear stories from in the comments, and we will do our best to get them scheduled soon, and just keep this rolling out every single week. So, all right, let's get to this episode. Here is Cliff Cody. Hey everybody, here's another episode of Stories Behind the Songs. I'm your host, Chris Blair, and man, I love it when I get to travel and do these things. I am in beautiful Florida with palm trees behind us, and it's a beautiful day with my longtime friend, Cliff Cody.
How you doing, man?
Good, man. How are you?
Good to see you. Yeah.
Good to see you. I wanna dive in because there's so much to uncover, but man, we met each other probably 20 years ago.
Oh, yeah. Before the listening room.
Yeah, it was before the listening room. Yeah, running around Midtown, Losers, and Red Door, and like every bar in that area probably.
Yeah.
Going to writers' rounds and listening to friends. And so walk us through how you got to Nashville and how you got into music.
Oh, gosh. It's a big story. I grew up in Odessa, Texas. So you ever saw the movie Friday Night Lights? That's my hometown.
Yeah.
I played football.
Yeah.
I was a football player, obviously. I mean, I've been the same size since I was 16 years old. So it's illegal not to play football in Texas being my size. And so I played football, and I always loved music and sang and stuff, but just in my room and everything. And then I got hurt, and then couldn't really go to college and play football. And to be honest with you, I needed another way to get girls, to get dates.
Yeah.
So I was like, and it was about that time that Lyle Lovett married Julia Roberts, and I was like, you know what? Let me delve into this music thing and see what it's. So
the truth comes out.
Yeah, and I was working as a bouncer at this honky tonk in Odessa, Texas, and I always kind of knew I could sing a little bit, but never really did it. And so there was this mean little redheaded waitress there that I was trying to get with, and they had karaoke night, and she was like, "Why don't you get up and sing me a song?" And I was like, "All right, I will." And I did, and there was a band in the audience that night looking for a new lead singer, and they asked me if I wanted to gig, and I was like, yeah, sure. And went out the next day and got a guitar with the guitar player. He showed me some chords, and my grandpa played guitar, so he showed me some chords, and I just took to it. And within a couple of weeks, I'd written my first song. I mean, it wasn't a good song, but I'd written my first song, and then 6 months later, I was like, I'm moving to Nashville. And this was in 1994. I was 20 years old.
Yeah.
And so I kicked around Nashville I wanted to go there to be a songwriter, and I thought it might take me a couple of years to get signed, and it ended up taking me about 12.
Yeah. Well, they say it's a 10-year town, so
I was a little behind.
You got to get past that 10 years. Well, and then once you did get signed, I mean, you'd had some success. You've had a lot of success since then. So I want to talk about, obviously, you know, this is about letting people, like, kind of pulling the curtain back, if you will, on music in general. We call it the stories behind the songs. It could be about a festival. It could be about a publisher. It could be like, we kind of dive into all of it. But I want to go into, you've written some incredible songs. And so I want to talk about one or two of your favorite songs that you've written and the stories behind those.
Okay.
But then I want to also talk about what got you to Key West. And you've become this like you're the mayor of Key West. I mean, you're like the it, have just killed it there. You live there now.
I live there now.
And you know, it's I mean, we're here in Florida, like just enjoying it. So let's talk about those things. So walk me through one or two songs, and then take us into kind of Key West and how that all came about.
Well, the first time, what got me finally signed, I started taking, and what took me 12 years, you know, longer than it probably should have, is I didn't treat it as a craft.
Yeah.
So once I started doing that, I got involved with NSAI and started going to song camps and getting taught by the guys that actually knew what they were doing. And once that happened, everything clicked.
Who were the guys back then?
Oh gosh, D. Vincent Williams, James Dean Hicks, those guys. I mean, gosh.
I think we were watching like every Tuesday at Tin Roof. We would go watch those guys together. D. Vincent, and James Dean, and Dylan Dixon.
And D. Vincent kind of took me under his wing and like encouraged me, and I actually ended up writing for his publishing company years later. But the first time I got signed was I went to one of those NSAI the song symposium or something. I got to play in front of a publisher, and my song was finally good enough, and they got me a card, they got me a meeting, and that was with Big Tom Luderin over at EMI at the time. And the first person he put me, he was like, I want to try you out with some of our writers and see how you do. First person was Arliss Albritton, and went and wrote a really good song with him that day, and he went back to Tom, and Tom said, what do you think of this guy? And he goes, if you don't sign him right now, you're a dumbass. So Tom signed me. And a few weeks later, me and Arliss got together to write. And he goes, hey, I hear Julie Roberts at that time, she was writing for her second album. And he goes, I hear she's looking for a song. She wants to, and they had specific things that they wanted in the song that they were looking for. And he goes, let's write it for her. It's like, all right, let's. So we wrote this song specifically for her, and 2 weeks later she cut it, and that was my first ever like major label cut, and it was the song called Chasing Whiskey. Yeah, and I was like, man, I've been signed for 2 weeks and I already got a cut. This is easy. Yeah, I was like, it was never that easy again. It was never that easy again, but yeah, that song ended up in like. You know, when they reviewed her album, Rolling Stone magazine, they talked about the song and said it was a highlight of the album, and it was just a really cool experience. And after that, I was just, I was hooked, and I was like, I'm never not gonna do this and try this. Yeah. So, and after getting that cut, it led me to getting invited to the Key West Songwriters Festival. Where no fun has ever happened. No fun has ever had. And I absolutely fell in love with Key West and that vibe and the music scene there. So playing at the Key West Songwriters Festival, I played at the Hogbreath Saloon as one of my shows. And the general manager and the guy that started the Songwriters Festival, Charlie Bauer, heard me. And he was like, hey, he goes, I would love to have you come here when it's not Songwriters Festival and have you play at the Hogbreath. So I started doing that a few times, and that's a different animal, because I was used to playing songwriters rounds where you play 5 or 6 songs maybe. Yeah. And he goes, it's a 4-hour shift, 10 days in a row. Yeah. And I was like, oh crap, I don't. So I was like, I definitely don't have enough songs that I wrote to fill that 4 hours, and I definitely don't have enough. Covers, but I told him I did. So those first few times I played there, I faked my way through it. I took long breaks. I talked a lot. I I tuned a lot, but I somehow was able to like get through those shows. And then, but playing on that stage in Key West is what taught me how to be a performer, actually, because you're up there by yourself for
you got to read the crowd,
4 hours, figure out what they want to hear, and it actually helped me with my songwriting, because I had to go and learn all these great songs. And when you're learning those, you're like, oh, okay. You get kind of, you when you're learning someone else's song, you get, it's like you're getting a songwriting
puzzle pieces are starting to come together.
You're like, okay, that's what worked in this. This is so, and now I have, probably 12 hours of covers I can do.
Yeah.
like the other night I was playing at the Smokin Tuna. They didn't have a band. I did a 3-hour show. And they were like, the band's not coming. Can you stay on stage? I was like, yeah, sure. And I played for 6 hours and never repeated a song. It was,
wow. That's impressive. Yeah. I want to talk about you're into history and a lot of like just the history in that area, in this area in general, where we are. Talk to me about the necklace you're wearing, because I heard this story the other night. It's just so cool.
This one, this is El Cazador wreck. This basically created the West. It was a Spanish galleon, the El Cazador. The Spanish government was going bankrupt. The Louisiana Territory, which Spain owned, was going bankrupt. They needed to infuse a bunch of silver from Aztec and Inca silver from Mexico. So they sent the ship, the El Cazador, over in the 1700s, and it never made it. So it basically bankrupted the Spanish government, and in turn, they sold the Louisiana Territory to Napoleon, and he turned around and sold it to Thomas Jefferson, which created, the West. And in the 90s, a shrimp boat captain found it and found the wreck and pulled up all these in his shrimp nets. And they say they found the El Cazador is about 50 miles from New Orleans. So if it would have made it, our country probably would have looked a lot different. So, yeah. And it's just cool that this thing was on the bottom of the ocean for a couple hundred years.
Yeah. It's so crazy. I mean, it's like nothing that we typically talk about on this podcast, but I heard you telling that story and I was just like, man, it's so cool. And think about what we have in the United States, like it wouldn't have looked the same.
50 miles.
Yeah. Almost there. Yeah.
50, almost. Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, man, what else with music? You've got so many stories and we've known each other for so long. Like, what's some of the best, experiences that you've gotten to do, with this career?
I mean, it's just the people I've met, the people I've gotten to open up for. I mean, just heroes of mine that I got to open up for Charlie Daniels. I mean, Hank Williams Jr. Got to meet both of them. Got to, it is. And I would say the best thing about music is every single one of my friends that I really hold dear, I've met because of music, pretty much. I don't really keep in contact very much with my high school, friends, but like all my dear friends, I met my ex-wife through music. I met her at the Bluebird Cafe.
Yeah.
So if I wouldn't have gone there that night, my daughter would not exist.
Yeah.
I met my best friend, Arliss Albritton. I mean, so many friends through music and become friends with people that have come to my shows in Key West and stuff. And that's probably the biggest gift of the biggest, coolest thing about music. And it's just the friends I've made. And, and one of the coolest things, I mean, when I first got signed at EMI, Jamie Johnson had got signed probably about a year before. And Stapleton was walking around, hearing him in the writers' rooms back then. Before anyone knew who Chris Stapleton was. This is like 2005. Yeah. And like me and Arliss would go in there to write, and the writers' rooms are all close together, and we go in there, and he goes, "Oh man, that's Stapleton. He's loud as hell. Let's go to the other end of the building." And like Jamie Johnson, the day he wrote In Color, he came in the office and he was like, "Hey, you want to hear this song? I just wrote it." and to be able to hear a song like that the day it was written is pretty cool. I mean, I wish you would have written it with me, but
right, yeah,
I'd dress better.
yeah, man. There's been I've gotten to experience that on the listening room side, where these guys are coming in and trying out these songs for the first time. I heard Jamie play it at the listening room back in Cummins Station, probably 2008, 2009, something like that, and it was the same thing. Like, hey, this is a new song, never played it out.
Yeah, and I'm sure with being in the listening room, you get to like, and it's something about when you hear a song like that, you're like, oh, there's those songs you hear at Riders Nights, and you're like,
yeah, especially because, like, for me at least, back then, I was in it all, right? I was bartending, I was running sound, I was doing everything. So I wasn't truly listening. My ears are always open, but I was busy, and it was those kind of songs that would make me stop and go, whoa, what is this? Yeah. Where it's like, you just know it's something special.
Yeah, when that hook just grabs you.
What are you listening to? Stapleton, I always loved that song, and I told him for years, and I've got a video from our Second Avenue location where I was sitting there, and he was on stage, and he was kind of strumming, and then right before he started playing, he stops and he points up at me on the camera, and he's like, This is one of my favorite songs. I'm gonna play this for my buddy Chris up there. This is his favorite song. It's called "What Are You Listening To?" And few people in town, like, they'd heard it, but nobody else outside of Nashville had heard that song. Yeah. And then it was like right after that all of a sudden he's like, boom. Yeah. But it's so cool to to be able to experience that and watch your friends. And I think that's kind of what you were saying. Like, you're surrounded where your best friends are all in the industry, and we're all working together, and you wish that you were in the room when Jamie wrote In Color.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
I might have messed it up.
We're like,
I know, I'm like,
I probably would have.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, that's the other thing I love about what we do is it's like there's a friendly competitiveness, but we're all a family.
Yeah,
you get so excited
you
for your friends.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah. Brothers can be competitive, but you're still brothers.
Exactly.
And you root for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a great industry to be a part of. I mean, it really is.
Yeah.
This episode is brought to you by Brit Skin Beauty. Located in the beautiful Indulgence Medi Spa in Mount Juliet, Tennessee, Brittany is the go-to esthetician for facials, dermaplaning, microdermabrasion, waxing, lashes, and any skincare products and consultations. So many people in the music industry use her frequently, and her work speaks for itself. To schedule your next consultation or make an appointment, visit britskinbeauty.com or send an email to britskinbeauty@gmail.com. Man, all right. Well, before we wrap up, I always end with the same question. So, you've had all of this success. You are killing it in Key West. If you go back to everything that you've learned through all of your steps in the music industry, with coming to Nashville, getting your first pub deal, getting your first cut, meeting Charlie Bauer and moving to Key West and all of that you've done, and you go back to 8-year-old Cliff Cody in Texas playing football.
Yeah.
What advice would you give yourself today?
One, I wish now I would have not been so shy back in the day when I first got signed to. I was in that building with at EMI. It was an amazing place to be when I was younger. Guy Clark had his office there, and Stapleton was walking around the halls, and just I wish I would have probably gone up to Guy Clark and said, hey, I'd see him every day at the coffee machine. I was intimidated because he was an intimidating guy, but he really wasn't. He just, he was a sweetheart once I got to know him. But I wish I would have just said, "Hey, man, ask him for his advice and maybe ask him to write with me and stuff." I regret that. I was shy and and I was young. And I didn't feel like I was ready at and I might not have been yet, but I wish I would have taken that leap on some of those guys and some of those opportunities, and write everything down. If you get a song idea in your head, write it down. You're not going to remember it later most of the time. And I think I've lost a lot of great songs by just like, oh, I'll write that. I'll remember that. And then you don't. And so that's my other, I guess, advice.
What about those songs that you do write down and then you go back to later and go, what was I thinking?
Oh, yeah. It happens all the time.
That's what I do all the time.
I mean, I don't write. Now I just have it on my phone. I have voice memos. And then I'll go back and listen. I'm like, good Lord. Like, nope.
I'll text. I was at Red Rocks a couple months ago, listening to a show out there that was amazing. It was my first time to Red Rocks.
Yeah.
And I came up with this great idea in my head. And I texted Brian Davis and I was like, dude, this song, like, we got to write this song together.
Yeah.
And then later I was like, I don't really think that was a great idea. You know, it's like, I don't know where that came from, but something told me that night it was great.
And just listening to people will give you ideas all the time. I mean, just if you just listen to what people are saying, good Lord, there's so many great songs and just what other people are going through and what they say.
Yeah.
I mean, just be a great songwriter. You got to be a great listener. Of the world, you know.
I don't usually ask this question, which is kind of similar to advice for you, but I think just because you've also worked with a lot of songwriters and you've opened your heart up to the new guys too, and you'll write, you know, it's not like as you've grown in success, I look at you as one of those guys. It's not like, all right, I have my little circle of people I'll write with and I won't write with anybody else. You're very very giving of your time and sharing of your knowledge.
Yeah.
So for anybody out there listening that maybe is an aspiring songwriter, maybe they're in town in Nashville already, maybe they're thinking about moving to Nashville. What advice would you give somebody else because when we moved to town, you know, it was a different beast. The industry has changed so much with socials and how people look at those numbers versus talent sometimes, you know, like, so what advice would you give somebody else that's maybe just starting out in this?
Just starting, I mean, just like I said, just learn, like learn that there is a craft and learn the craft. Like I said, that's what took me so long once I started was just, I was like, oh, I could just throw this at the craft of songwriting and learning study songs that like reach people, that get people, you know, just be a student of the craft.
Yeah.
And gosh, as far as getting in, like I said back in the day, it was like once you were like in behind you're in for like, ever. But it just takes you a while to get in. And I think Arliss always says this, and he has the greatest, Arliss Albritton, I think I heard him tell you, is like, you know, don't be the smartest person in the room. Try to write with people that are better than you and learn from them. And that's what's gonna get you further.
Yeah.
Is, if you can write with someone that's better than you, do that.
Yeah.
Do that as much as you can. And every writer, even the great ones, they all have their different styles of how they write. You know, you might have one guy that you don't know, like, you know, you don't know what they're thinking, and all of a sudden you're like, are they hating everything I'm throwing out? But no, they're more internal. Yeah. And then like Arliss, I love writing with him because he is just like throwing stuff out, like and like he has like rapid fire ideas. And then there's some people that are more internal, they're slower writers, which I kind of am. I'm thinking stuff and then all of a sudden I'm like, doom, and then it's I don't know if that's that's a good way of explaining it, but
yeah. Well, dude, thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome, man.
It's always good to hang with you, but being able to sit down and just share a little piece of your story with everybody is just it's pretty awesome. We don't get to see each other.
I know.
Much anymore,
I'm in Key West. I'm doing like 300 dates a year in Key West
it's
now.
Nuts, man.
So, but it's nice. Everyone comes to see me now.
Yeah. I haven't been down for a while, even for the festival. But we need to just make a trip and just come hang. So
come on down.
Yeah,
it's every night, Saturday night, man.
Yes. All right. Well, we will put liner notes for everybody of how you can find Cliff if you're in Key West, and go see a show. He is a great entertainer and just a lot of fun. And we hope you enjoy this podcast. We hope you share it with everybody. Just thanks for listening. This has been another episode of Stories Behind the Songs with Cliff Cody. We'll see you next time. This has been an episode of Stories Behind the Songs with Chris Blair. For more information after the show, head over to chrisblair.com. That's where you can find information on these episodes, trailer notes, video links, all kinds of great stuff. Also, make sure to leave us a great rating on iTunes, like and follow us on Spotify, YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts. Leave us a comment, let us know what you think. I really hope that you think this show is awesome, and we really appreciate the love and support. I promise to keep gathering great content and continuing to sit down with more amazing songwriters and artists as we grow. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks for the support. We'll see you next time.